BYU Miami. If anybody, to me, puts those two teams together, I think of a game back in 1990 that I am old enough. Yes, I watched, and I was plenty old at that point even to have watched that game when number one Miami went out to Provo and took it on the chin like 28-21. I may look up the box score of that game, but that set Ty Detmer's 1990 Heisman candidacy off and running, and pretty much was probably the biggest reason why he won the award that year. But the BYU Cougars come to Miami first in 2026 and then a return date in 28.
Yeah, and this is going to be the third and fourth times that our programs have matched up. We had a home and home previously in 88 and 90, as I'm looking it up on the interwebs right now. Miami won the first one in Coral Gables, at the Orange Bowl, 41-17, and then lost the return 2 years later in Provo by that 28-21 scoreline. So yeah, if you're looking for much more history between BYU and Miami, it don't exist. So we're going to create some new history. And, they're a name brand team. I'm not going to say that they're like super uber premium or anything, but like BYU is a name brand. Okay, cool.
In a very unique way.
In a very unique way.
They're kind of in their own category.
Right, exactly. But like, hey, there's nothing wrong with being in your own category, but I mean, it's a name that you're like, oh, that's, it's kind of one of those things, I'm tilting my head kind of like a dog. You're like, oh, okay, it's one of those things. Like, I didn't necessarily consider them for a non-conference, but they're an independent team of repute. They are a name brand, like people do know them and everything. They're going to come down here first, and then the return is going to be 2 years later, and that just adds another premium non-conference opponent on top of Notre Dame, Florida, Alabama this year, South Carolina a couple times, Texas A&M a couple of times, Michigan State this year. It's another name brand, big time. I won't call them Power Five because they're not in a conference, but of that ilk kind of a team. So like I said, it was not necessarily the team that I had looked at for a non-conference game. I think I wrote 5 or 6 years ago a piece about who I want to see in non-conference. They were not on my list. I know that Craig T. Smith is running down his top most wanted non-conference opponents for the future. I know for a fact, because I've seen the list, that they're not on there. Tennessee is also, we did a home and home with them and everything. But yeah, so I'm with it. And honestly, I know that Mark was talking about like looking into the future. This is going to happen sooner than other non-conference games, which this is in this decade even. You know what I mean? Like,
it is only 5 years away.
That's what I'm saying. But you have other ones that are scheduled for 12 and 14 and 16 years out. It's like, oh, well, and then finally some of those are coming to fruition. But, a lot of these were in the, when Miami was good. I mean, we were still always relevant, but, when Miami was good, some of these games that are getting played now were scheduled then. So you're talking 15, 18 years on, and now we're paying off some of the, well, not necessarily us, but, some of these things. But yeah, this is within this decade, 5 years away. This is a much quicker timeline than, some other non-conference games and things like that. But hey, I'm with it. They want to be, BYU wants to build up and have a national reputation. So especially by going independent. So they're looking to play anybody, anywhere. They want to come back out here. Miami's obviously a name brand program. They want to come in here and play and then have us go out there, which is going to raise their profile by playing a name brand team like in Miami. And so it can be mutually beneficial. I'm all for it. Put them on the schedule. We'll play anybody, anywhere. Respect all opponents and fear none. Hopefully we, do our thing. Hopefully our team is at the state where it should be. And we have competitive games. And of course, me, Miami alum, blogger, all those kind of things. I want Miami to win. And hopefully we're able to make that happen.
Most off seasons, I review all the schedules in the Power Five and I rank them, which is, I was going to say, an exhausting process. I don't want to make it sound like it's some kind of burden. I choose to do it. So it's one of those things that, in theory, you love to do, and then you get about a tenth of the way through, and then you're like, really, am I going to grind it out and do this? Because to do it right and really compare everybody's schedules, you got to have a system. You can't just start saying, oh, I'm going to compare Miami's and Florida State's and start there. You got to have a system. Anyway, my point being, BYU always has the oddest schedule, because I think what happens is most of the teams, obviously, in the Power Five play their non-conference games at the beginning of the season. So BYU plays a really difficult September typically. They really load up on the Pac-12 in particular. A lot of Washington, UCLA, USC kind of games. A lot of those, 4 or 5 of those right out of the gate. And then you can tell that they are just struggling to find an opponent because they're out there by themselves, them and Notre Dame looking for an opponent. And Notre Dame obviously has its built-in scheduling system. So most of their schedule's built out by the ACC, Stanford, USC, Navy. So they pretty much have 8 or 9 of their games locked in. Where BYU, it's this front-loaded schedule. And then they'll pick up a Wisconsin, a Michigan State. They'll pick up some really good opponents. And then by the remainder of the schedule, aside from maybe a Boise State, it's a lot of Utah State, and I've seen Wagner on there, and just about anybody they can piece together the rest of the way. So it's usually one of the weakest Power 5, if you want to call them a Power 5. And I know that we could debate that all night in regards to Group of 5, Power 5. I'd swing them more in the Group of 5.
Okay.
Realm to a certain extent, but I know they're in kind of no man's land, but their schedule is very uneven and awkward, but it's kind of interesting at the same time. I got this 1990 box score in front of me. And again, I remember watching this late night ESPN or, like a 9 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, something like that. And for a 1990 game, these were 2 of the few teams that you could put together on the same field where Craig Erickson throws 52 passes and Ty Detmer throws 54.
Wow.
They were putting it up. Detmer went 38 for 54 with a pick. He threw for 406, 3 TDs. Erickson threw 28 for 52 for 299, no TDs and a pick. And again, 28-21 in that one after Miami had beaten them by 24 the year before.
And that was, obviously BYU was one of the teams out west who was kind of chucking the ball all around and everything, and putting up those kind of numbers. It was kind of a niche thing then. It was like them and Houston, David Klingler, and Andre Ware with the Heisman, and things like it wasn't everybody wasn't throwing it around like that, but they were. And Miami was a team who was more on the pro style first or early, so throwing it a little bit more than the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And if we had to throw it a lot back then, we would. And this is a game where we needed to, obviously. But yeah, they were just a little bit better at it. And then, that was the foundation for Ty Detmer stepping into the national stage and then eventually winning a Heisman that season for putting up numbers, big numbers against everybody else. But yeah, so that was a little bit of your Miami Hurricanes history. And I'm even learning some about that because, again, I was a 9-year-old University of Michigan fan growing up in Detroit at the time. And I was 9 years old, so I was not up at anybody's 9 o'clock until whenever watching this game or whatever. But, it'll be an interesting time for all of us, even, approaching around milestone birthday next week, of my age and everything to even approach.
I did the, yeah.
Yeah.
I put it together. Okay.
Yeah. It's 40 is the new 30, and apparently 40, well, not apparently 40 is what I will be on Tuesday. So yeah. But I didn't see this game earlier, and it'll be interesting to see the matchup between these teams in a couple of years. I will do my best to be to the game that's here in Miami Gardens at whatever they're calling Hard Rock Stadium then. I probably will not be making the return trip out to Provo, Utah, but maybe, because when again in my lifetime are they going to play them? Maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
Beautiful scenery from what I've heard. I've never been to Utah myself. I think I've driven like over a corner once or twice, maybe.
Okay.
But I don't know that it's a destination necessarily. But Miami with 3 notable receivers in this game. Lamar Thomas caught 9 for 125. Randall Hill 4 for 33 and a touchdown. And Rob Chudzinski. So there's at least 3 NFL players and probably a few other guys that had a cup of coffee, but 3 prominent ones. Yeah, BYU, just very interesting football history, tradition, and what they're known for, because basically they are known. They haven't done anything in a long time that's really worth noting. I know that with, I'm drawing a blank. Zach, the quarterback
Wilson.
they had last year, Zach Wilson. With him and with the easy schedule they put together because of COVID, they went 11-1 and they caused a little a little flare up last year, but besides that, they've posted a lot of 8 and 5s and 7 and 6s for a long, long time. So they've been good, they've been decent, but not great and really relevant. But as an all time, yeah, they do have that mark of that the passing game. Lavelle Edwards, they did produce 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, Jim McMahon and Steve Young, and a Heisman Trophy. So there's something there, no doubt.
Yeah, Hall of Famer Steve Young, direct descendant of Brigham Young himself. So, yeah.